10 years ago, the supercomputer Titan issued a terrifying warning. A dark asteroid would annihilate the planet on November 11th, plunging the world into absolute chaos. Armies mobilized and citizens locked their doors in prayer. But as years passed with no impact, the prophecy was dismissed as a false alarm, and humanity's faith withered. Until the 10th year, on that very fated day, the asteroid finally descended. But it wasn't the end we imagined. Instead, it was the dawn of an eternal game system. In an instant, it transformed all of humanity into NPCs, forced to slay monsters and level up just to survive. The weak would be deleted from the game, or worse, they'd become zombies. Our story begins in a high-rise office building. The people on the upper floors were showing terrifying signs, twisting into demonic forms, hunting the living with a ravenous hunger. Desperate screams and agonized moans echoed through the halls as a young woman ran for her life. She was one of the last few who hadn't been turned. While sprinting, the woman shrieked, "Get away! Stop chasing me!" In this moment, only speed could save her from the nightmare at her heels. She poured every last ounce of strength into bursting through the door. "I have to get back to my parents. I can't die here. If I can just make it to the warehouse, I'll be safe." Clinging to that sliver of hope, she darted into a nearby room to escape the immediate threat. But when she threw open the door, the poor woman was met with a scene of pure horror. A man inside was being brutally murdered by his own colleague. He was being eaten alive right there. The floor was slick with pools of blood, and in a twisted turn of fate, the man wasn't dead yet. He reached out a desperate hand, trying to scream, "Luo Han, run!" while the zombie behind him feasted on his warm flesh. The sight was too much to bear. Luo Han's legs gave out from under her. She collapsed to the floor, her entire body trembling too violently to even speak. Now, having finished its gruesome meal, the zombie stood up straight. Its next target was clearly the beautiful woman before it. She was losing her composure, whispering, "I'm so scared. Please, somebody save me." In the next instant, the grotesque zombie, surrounded by a strange, dark aura, lunged forward like the wind, aiming its sharp claws right at her. There was no time to run. The woman could only sit there, weakly trying to fend it off while praying desperately in her heart, "Amitabha, can anyone save me?" Just then, a powerful footstep thundered closer. It was the silhouette of a tall, powerfully built, and incredibly handsome young man. He wielded a massive sword, leaping through the air to intercept the monster just as it was about to sink its teeth into the girl's pale legs. The sword swung down, cleaving the zombie in two. The young man's finishing pose was effortlessly cool and heroic. He had successfully snatched the girl from the jaws of death. But looking at him, he seemed completely ordinary, except for the strange, powerful energy radiating from his eyes. Could he be an awakened? A system notification rang out. Level 1 zombie defeated. 10 points awarded. Just when she thought she was about to die, a savior had suddenly appeared. Luo Han felt an instant connection to this man, staring up at him, unable to look away. He seemed familiar. Though her body was weak with fear, Luo Han looked up and whispered, "Yun Qi?" He turned to look at the girl before him, silent for a long moment. But just behind him, another zombie was charging madly, eager to snatch its delicious prey. The girl, however, was still oblivious, lost in the joy of her rescue. But he wasn't about to let this monster touch Luo Han. Yun Qi readied his blade and launched himself forward to end it. With cold precision, the Yun Qi before her swung his sword in a single, clean arc, splitting the zombie's body in two. It never even touched a single hair on her head. A spray of red blood splattered across her golden hair. System: Level 1 zombie defeated. 10 points awarded. After saving her twice, Yun Qi's words were cold, but his actions were anything but. He reached down, pulled Luo Han to her feet, and said, "What are you standing around for? Run." Her heart pounding, Luo Han stared at the young man, hesitating, unsure what to say in this insane situation. Right. Back in the office, zombies were savagely tearing into the last survivors. They were horrifying, not just eating their victims, but turning the dead into more of their kind. As they ran, Luo Han still couldn't believe this was happening. "Yun Qi, I can't believe it. Is this really the apocalypse? Or am I dreaming?" In response to her innocent and pitiful words, Yun Qi turned back with an ice-cold expression and said, "I wish I knew if this was a dream, too." This was Yun Qi, 21 years old, the young master of the Yun family from Central Capital. 10 minutes ago, he was just a rich kid pretending to be an office worker. Now, he was locked in a battle of wits against a horde of zombies. Let's rewind to the peaceful office before the world ended. Yun Qi, holding a designer briefcase, strode through the halls like he owned the place. Model. From head to toe, he was decked out in luxury brands. His entire aura screamed that he was no ordinary man. The air of wealth still clung to him. Just then, a familiar voice called out his name. It was the same woman Van Koy had rescued just moments before. She was just as beautiful as she had been 10 minutes ago. She must have had her eye on Van Koy for a while, because she confidently approached him to start a conversation. Van Koy, are you working late tonight? Today's the day of the apocalypse prophecy, and I'm terrified. Could you maybe give me a ride home? But Van Koy couldn't care less about some ridiculous doomsday rumor. True to his cold on the outside, warm on the inside nature, he replied to Minyi. That prophecy is 10 years old. What's there to be afraid of? Even elementary school kids don't believe that stuff anymore. Hearing this, the girl burst into laughter, a little embarrassed. Haha, is that right? Then, he turned back to her and asked, but, are you actually scared? The moment she saw Van Koy was willing to talk more, her spirits lifted. Huh? Oh yes. Yes, I'm terrified. It seemed she was more interested in Van Koy than the actual end of the world. A wave of delight washed over her as she admired her own charm. Haha, I knew it. No one can resist me. Seeing right through her not-so-subtle plan, Van Koy raised his hand high, grabbing the attention of everyone in the office. Hey everyone, the office goddess is afraid of the apocalypse. Can someone give our goddess a ride home after work? His words made everyone look up. But the one person who was definitely not amused was the company's other goddess, Lohan. Huh? What was that? The office's #1 beauty had personally made an offer, yet this clueless Van Koy had the nerve to just pawn her off on the other guys. Always ready to simp for the office beauty, the men immediately swarmed her. They all scrambled, eager for the chance to be her chauffeur. I can do it, Lohan. I live on the same route as you. Let me take you home. No, pick me. The whole scene made Lohan so flustered she could have cried. She had no idea how to handle the sudden chaos. You almost had to feel sorry for her. Her mind was a complete mess as she silently cursed Van Koy. Van Koy, you dense blockhead. No wonder you don't have a girlfriend. Meanwhile, the man himself calmly sat back down at his desk, not having to worry about giving anyone a ride. He slowly opened his briefcase, murmuring to himself. The end of the world, huh? A faint smirk played on Van Koy's lips. It seemed he found that woman just a little bit interesting. But with his straightforward personality, a no was a no. That's quite a pickup line, he thought to himself. But Van Koy had no time for doomsday prophecies. This was the only thing on his mind right now. Inside the briefcase, Van Koy had just opened to lay a single sword, the very blade he would use just 10 minutes from now to fight zombies. A nearby colleague, on his way to get coffee, noticed Van Koy staring intently at the blade. He snickered and asked mockingly, "Another model? Van Koy? You're in your 20s. Aren't you a little old for toys?" The word struck a nerve. A model? He muttered under his breath. Ignoring his coworker completely, Van Koy's attention was fixed on a small piece of paper. It read, "Little Koy, this sword is forged from a titanium alloy, the hardest metal in the world. It can slice through gold like butter. Keep it for your protection. Signed, Van Thi." After reading the note, he was lost in thought, a question burning in his mind. This was no mere toy. It was a Class 3 restricted weapon, illegal for any civilian to possess. How on earth did she get this to me? His gaze remained fixed on the letter. Before him lay a prohibited weapon of immense power. But Van Koy wasn't focused on the blade. His thoughts were on the person who sent it. It's been 3 years since you've come home. When are you ever planning on returning? As the thought crossed his mind, Van Koy turned the letter over in his hands. He was suddenly struck by the realization. Has it really been 3 years? Unwilling to live the life laid out for him, Van Koy had left the capital, Zhongdu, to live on his own terms in District 105. It's time to end this irresponsible escape. I've been away from home for too long. It seemed Van Koy was finally ready to face his family again. He made a promise to himself. Tomorrow, after I get paid, I'm going home. The office was completely normal one moment. And then suddenly, the power system failed, plunging the entire room into a state of alarm. But that wasn't all. Horrific screams and guttural roars echoed from outside. The office was suddenly thrown into chaos. Van Koy shot to his feet, his eyes scanning the area warily. He didn't know it yet, but a catastrophe was about to unfold. The sky itself seemed to bleed, casting a crimson glow that bathed the entire building, and everything inside it in a bloody light. Everyone rushed to the windows to see the strange phenomenon. But Van Koy froze, his eyes widening in utter disbelief at the sight of a colossal star. The heavens themselves seemed to be collapsing. The prophesied doomsday had arrived. A massive star was on a collision course with Earth, and everyone could see it hurtling towards them with their own naked eyes. Inside the office, absolute pandemonium broke out. Is that the Titan black meteorite from the prophecies? Why wasn't there any warning from the government? Damn it, it's not actually going to hit Blue Star, is it? Boss, I'm leaving. I have to get home. All across the planet, emergency sirens began to wail, a sound that everyone on Earth could hear. Humans of Blue Star, welcome to the global apocalypse game. From this moment forward, you will lose your status as humans. You are now either monsters or NPCs in this game. The first 24 hours will be the tutorial phase. You must accumulate points and upgrade through NPCs. The higher your rank, the greater your power will become. In 24 hours, the players will enter the game. You cannot kill the players, but they can, and will, kill you. Be warned. Death in this game is final. Hearing this, our main character's mind raced, still reeling from the shock of this twisted game that had fallen from the heavens, forcing all of humanity to play by the rules of some unseen power. He wondered, if everyone becomes a monster or an NPC, then who are the players? Just then, the apocalyptic system's voice echoed once more. Global communication mode adjustment complete. Game channel activated. All previous forms of communication are now offline. Please select your class within 5 minutes. In 5 minutes, the game will officially commence. A system window materialized before everyone. Each person received a personal interface, their key to surviving this apocalyptic game. Our main character, Yun-Chi, was no exception. His own status window flickered to life, displaying his details. Name: Yun-Chi. Position: Novice Village NPC. Level 1. For each level up, you gain 2 main and 2 sub-stat points. You have 2 free points to allocate. Every 10 levels, main stats increase by 10%. Under 200 points, you are an NPC. You can only level up by accumulating points. Current stats: Strength 9, increasing physical damage. Agility 9, increasing speed. Spirit 10, boosting magical power. Constitution 10, raising defense. Class compatibility: 10%. Personal talent: unselected. Class specialization: none. Skills: none. As he finished reading his own stats, Yun-Chi was stunned, yet it all felt strangely familiar. This interface was just like an online game. The panel prompted him to choose a class, with a button waiting below. Yun-Chi clicked Next. He reasoned that if this truly was the apocalypse, a class with high strength would offer the best chance of survival. Instantly, a series of class cards materialized before his eyes. First was the warrior. Main stat: Strength. Substat: Constitution. It had a 5% chance to activate Bloodlust. This would increase strength by 5% and attack speed by 15% for 10 seconds. Next was the mage. Main stat: Spirit. Its effect was a 15% boost to casting speed. The third card was the knight. Main stat: Constitution. Substat: Strength. Its effect: if Constitution is your highest stat, gain a 20% bonus and ignore 50% of equipment weight. This third card immediately caught Yun-Chi's eye. A knight, huh? That sounded powerful. Lost in thought, his gaze drifted to a sword lying on a nearby table. He reached out, his fingers brushing against the cold steel. If he chose knight or warrior, this blade would be essential. But the moment his hand touched the hilt, it suddenly erupted in a blinding light. A system notification flashed. A special announcement: abnormal energy detected. Congratulations. You have acquired the unique triple S rank class, Nether Knight. The intense light from the system window left Yun-Chi speechless. He had never witnessed anything like this before. He stared in disbelief, whispering, "A unique class? Just like that?" Instantly, the image of his chosen knight appeared on the screen. Its eyes glowed with an eerie light. The system announced, Nether Knight. Main stats: Constitution, Strength, and Spirit. Substat: Agility. Beneath, the details became clearer. Class specialization: Death's Decay, Level 1 passive. All attacks apply a mark of death, reducing healing effectiveness by 10%. Each death reduces the target's level by 1. When a target hits level 0, they are permanently erased from existence. This includes players. Each upgrade increases the effect by another 10%. Reading this, Yun-Chi felt a chill run down his spine. This power was almost too much. A mark of death, he thought. If I'm strong enough, I can even kill players? Is this a bug in the system? Another notification appeared. Congratulations on awakening a talent. Child of the Universe. Effect: increases non-combat stats tenfold. For a permanent change, the multiplier is 100 times, with a 24-hour. As he absorbed every last detail, Yun-Chi was left utterly stunned. He'd never encountered anything like it. This beginner's bonus was insane. It was no different from a game-breaking hack. With this power, Yun-Chi was like a tiger that had grown wings. Suddenly, a server-wide countdown began. The game would start in 5 seconds. Panic erupted among those who hadn't prepared. Why can't I pick a class? Is the system broken? This is so unfair. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The apocalypse game has begun. The world descended into chaos as screams echoed from every direction. What's happening to everyone? Don't scare me. Those who failed to choose a class began to transform. Their bodies twisted into those of bloodthirsty zombies. A girl nearby watched in absolute terror as the people around her began to mutate. Hey, what's wrong with you? You're scaring me. The two newly formed monsters lunged at her, tackling the girl to the ground. One of the zombies sank its teeth into her neck. A spray of crimson erupted, coating its face. Her final screams echoed through the room. Instantly, other zombies swarmed the weakest victims first. The entire room became a symphony of chaos as everyone scrambled for their lives. Those who were bitten began to mutate almost instantly. They transformed into the same hideous creatures. A new tide of the undead, hungry for their next prey, devouring anyone in their path. Yun-Chi witnessed it all. He was one of the lucky few who hadn't turned. Just then, a zombie lunged forward to attack. It was the girl from before, her humanity completely gone, moving like a rabid beast. The prey it had locked onto was a young man, looking like an easy meal. The man scrambled for his life, glancing back in absolute terror. At that exact moment, Yun-Chi gripped his sword and dashed out to block the zombie's path. As it leaped, it lost its footing, chomping down hard on the steel blade. Yun-Chi held his ground, refusing to budge. He was determined to save the man, facing down the dangerous zombie without a hint of fear. Yun-Chi was clearly different from everyone else. He shouted, "Run! Don't let them bite you! Get out of here!" The man just trembled, too terrified to even speak. The zombie thrashed wildly, its mouth grinding against the sharp sword. From the depths of its black eyes, a terrifying light began to glow. This all happened right after the outbreak began. Yun-Chi had just met Lu Xin, and together, they escaped the office. Lu Xin ran ahead, calling back to guide him. "Yun-Chi, over here." Suddenly, they ran into a former colleague. They slowed to a halt. Lu Xin stared at a man in a suit hiding behind a wall, her heart pounding. Unsure if he was human or one of them, she turned, her voice trembling slightly. "Yun-Chi, there's a noise up ahead." Without a word, he raised his sword and charged toward the figure lurking behind the wall, ready to strike. "Die, you monster." Suddenly, the man peeked his head out. He saw Yun-Chi's blade swinging his way and froze, dropping to his knees in terror. "Yun-Chi, don't kill me. I'm human." Recognizing the familiar face, Yun-Chi stopped his blade just in time. That was a close call. One more second and his friend would have been sent to the afterlife. Yun-Chi's eyes widened. Liu Yang was so relieved he nearly burst into tears. He looked up at Yun-Chi, a pathetic expression caught somewhere between a laugh and a sob. But just like that, they started to walk past him. Yun-Chi shot him a look. "Next time, don't pop out of nowhere." Liu Yang remained on the floor, still paralyzed with shock. Then, something inside him snapped. He whipped around and screamed, "Yun-Chi, are you abandoning a teammate? You saw me in trouble and won't help? Are you even human?" It was clear these two had some bad blood. Hearing Liu Yang's pathetic accusations, Yun-Chi shot him a death glare. "Whether I'm human is obvious," he said coldly. "But someone who stole my ideas 3 times and forced 3 female colleagues to get abortions? That's definitely not." Yun-Chi had just torn off his mask of decency in front of a beautiful girl, and in this life-or-death situation, he offered no salvation. His face turned purple with rage. Liu Yang gritted his teeth, his eyes burning with fury as he roared, "What did you just say?" Ignoring the lunatic trying to start a fight, Yun-Chi grabbed Lu Xin's hand and turned to leave. "Let's go," he said firmly. And with that, the two of them walked away without a second glance. Left behind, Liu Yang scrambled to his feet, shouting, "Wait, I'm a knight too. A group of 3 is safer." Lu Xin overheard Liu Yang's desperate plea. A flicker of fear crossed her face as she tried to reason with Yun-Chi. "Yun-Chi, did you hear that? He said he's really strong, but his will was made of iron." Yun-Chi merely glanced back at Liu Yang with utter contempt, thinking no amount of strength could cover up a rotten soul. Just hearing that seemed to shatter Liu Yang's ego. His ugly nature surfaced as his hand sneakily reached for a nearby mop. In an instant, Liu Yang raised the mop high, aiming to strike Yun-Chi from behind. "How dare you look down on me?" he screamed, his voice filled with venom. Lu Xin saw the sneak attack and tugged on Yun-Chi's arm. "Watch out!" But Yun-Chi's reflexes were razor sharp. He might have been an office worker, but his strength was formidable. Yunqi yanked his sword back. In one swift motion, he spun around and slammed the pommel straight into that pathetic excuse for a man. Liu Yang. The impact sent him stumbling back, vomiting on the spot. His eyes rolled into the back of his head as he let out a choked groan. A trail of spit dribbled from his mouth onto the floor. At that same moment, a zombie appeared right behind Liu Yang. He was completely unaware of the approaching monster. Still clutching his chest in agony, he had the nerve to demand, "Give me that sword," but when he finally turned around, he was face to face with a zombie. Its jaw hung open, ravenous for human flesh. He couldn't even form words. "Help! Help! Me!" Ignoring the backstabbing coward, Yunqi and Lu Xun simply walked away. He turned to her. "Let's go, Lu Xun." Being a kind soul, she hesitated, a wave of guilt washing over her. "Yunqi, are we really just going to leave him?" Right behind them, a zombie lunged at Liu Yang. It sank its teeth into him, letting out a blood-curdling scream that echoed through the entire building. At the sound, Yunqi finally stopped walking. He stood in front of Lu Xun, his voice low and serious, ready to wake her up to the harsh reality of their new world. "Lu Xun, drop the holier-than-thou act," he said, "and open your eyes." "Model." Kai spun around, his expression grim as he gritted his teeth. He looked the innocent Lucy in the eyes and said, "This is the apocalypse." Outside, the rogue planet hurtling toward their shattered world grew larger and more distinct in the sky. Across the city, a symphony of destruction raged on. With countless explosions and fiery chain reaction crashes, the citizens had been completely transformed into zombies, making it nearly impossible to find any survivors in the chaos. Inside the hallway, Kai stood before Lucy, his sword held ready. His voice was deadly serious as he gave her a dire warning. "If you continue being this naive, you'll just end up as bait." He then explained that the horde of zombies was far too massive. Lucy was paralyzed by fear and uncertainty. For an ordinary girl, the end of the world had come as a brutal, sudden shock. She had no choice but to listen to Kai, following obediently as he took the lead. Kai said, "First, we find a safe place." With that, the two of them headed toward the end of the corridor. Suddenly, a door creaked open, and a woman cautiously peeked out. She seemed to recognize Lucy. The woman immediately called out to her. Seeing her short-haired colleague, Lucy watched as she happily opened the door. The girl was overjoyed, as if they had been separated for an entire month. Lucy called out, "Gigi, is that you?" Outside the glass door, a horde of zombies slavered, hungry for human flesh. They clawed and slammed against the glass with thunderous force, and so, Kai, Lucy, and Gigi took refuge in a room, barricading the door with every heavy object they could find. Kai scanned his surroundings, a grim thought crossing his mind. Out of the entire company, are we the only 7 people left alive? After that tense reunion with Gigi, the three had barely made it to a high-end conference room, where the last of the survivors were gathered. Through the window, they could see nothing but ruins. There was no safe place left in the world. Gigi cowered under a table, sobbing. "Why did the world become like this? I want to go home." Everyone's nerves were shot. The woman with short hair next to Gigi tried to calm her, saying, "Surviving is the only thing that matters right now." A young man nearby tried to comfort them as well. "We're lucky the zombies haven't broken through the door yet." Suddenly, a man at the head of the table slammed his fist down, directing all of his fury at Gigi. "This is all your fault for letting them in. Our food was already scarce, and now the entrance is swarmed with zombies." This obnoxious fat man was Cao, the company manager. Even in the apocalypse, he clung to his arrogant authority, instinctively bellowing and blaming his subordinates for the situation. "Damn it! If you were going to die, you should have died out there. Why drag us down with you?" Hearing this, another man's temper flared. He flexed his impressive physique and shouted, "What the hell did you just say?" This man's name was Zhao. Kai watched him and frowned, recalling the moment the zombies had chased them. He thought to himself, "This guy, Zhao, he followed us in here, and he led that horde right to our doorstep." The fat-faced manager pointed a trembling finger at the towering, muscular Zhao, continuing his tirade. "What? Am I wrong? If you hadn't led those monsters here, we wouldn't be trapped like this. You're all covered in blood. For all we know, you're already infected. Better to die out there." Unable to tolerate the fat man's vicious words, Zhao, who was no pushover, snapped. He stomped forward, ready to teach Manager Cao a lesson. He cursed, "You son of a bitch." In the next instant, he grabbed the manager by the collar of his shirt. He roared in the man's face, "Cao, I've been putting up with your crap for far too long. You think being a manager makes you God?" Even then, Manager Cao refused to yield, resorting to his old power. "Zhao, you watch your mouth. or I swear I'll fire you. But this wasn't an office anymore, and Zhao no longer had any reason to hold back. He screamed directly into the manager's face like never before. Wake up! This is the apocalypse. You called me a monster? Fine. I'll show you what a real monster looks like. Hearing Zhao's terrifying threat, the color drained from Manager Cao's face. He finally felt fear, stammering, "You! What are you going to do?" "Stop it." The massive man's movements were shockingly fast. In an instant, the huge glass window shattered into pieces. Consumed by rage, he shoved the manager through the broken frame, hoisting his body out from the high-rise building. The manager's large body dangled precariously over the street below, a cold sweat breaking out all over him. "Are you insane? This is the 17th floor." From behind, Kai approached slowly, sword in hand. Manager Cao began to plead with Zhao, begging for a chance. "Please, don't kill me." But Zhao had been pushed too far. He had become a beast driven by rage. "Go to hell." Just then, a voice cut through the tension from behind. "Wait." Zhao glanced back, his face still a mask of pure fury. It was Lucy who spoke slowly. "Zhao, don't be hasty. I chose the mage class. I have the holy light talent. I can disinfect wounds. I can help you. So that no one has to turn into a monster." Hearing the naive girl reveal her secret ability, Kai gritted his teeth, wishing he could have silenced her in time. He cursed under his breath. Damn it. She just revealed the deadliest secret. That the greatest threat always comes from those closest to you. With everyone on edge, an act like this was just asking for disaster. The hulking brute named Zhao Nian heard that Luo Xin could heal him. His head snapped around as he asked, "Are you a mage?" Luo Xin cautiously stepped forward, explaining the situation more clearly to the giant man. "That's right, so don't worry about the virus. Together, we can stop this tragedy, maybe even change our fate." The brute stared at her intently, his hand still gripping the fat manager. Seeing a glimmer of hope, the manager chimed in. "Zhao Nian, she can cure you. You need her." After hearing this, a mysterious smile spread across Zhao Nian's face, the corners of his mouth twisting up in a terrifying way. And just as you'd expect, he released his grip, letting the fat manager plummet from the high-rise. He'd shown his true colors, a man without a shred of mercy. The manager thought he was getting a second chance. But it was a one-way ticket to the afterlife. Then, with a face full of twisted excitement, Zhao Nian declared, "It's time to change my destiny." The fat manager, Cao Yuqian, was now in a free fall from the 17th floor, experiencing pure terror in his final moments as his screams echoed through the air. Luo Xin witnessed the horror unfold before her very eyes. She couldn't believe Zhao Nian could be so cruel. She had clearly tried her best to save the manager, but even Yun Qi could do nothing. He stood there, watching the tragedy play out. The scream was audible all the way from the 17th floor to the ground below. A gruesome splash of crimson painted the pavement. Luo Xin's face went pale with fright. She had tried so hard, even revealing the truth about her class. But the worst still happened. But why? In a moment where the last of humanity should have been banding together, this man, Zhao Nian, let his inner beast run wild. Believing he was the strongest of the group, he laughed contemptuously and said, "Why else? Because I couldn't stand the sight of that fatso." The kind-hearted Luo Xin shot back, her face a mask of fury and disgust for the arrogant tyrant before her. Just for that? That was a human life. It seemed this man had also awakened his class. Her words only seemed to provoke him further, his fists clenched as he roared like a savage beast. A human life? In that very spot, Zhao Nian seemed to go berserk as powerful bolts of lightning erupted from his body. He bellowed across the room, "It's just a stepping stone for me, the warrior class. It suits me perfectly. With this power, I won't just survive. I'll rule the world." His status read, Zhao Nian, Level 1 Warrior. What? This guy is so arrogant. He's only a puny Level 1 and he's already talking about world domination? What a joke. Standing nearby, Yunqi couldn't stand the guy's attitude. He glared, his irritation obvious as he thought to himself, in a lawless apocalypse, the darkness of the human heart is far beyond imagination. And now, Zhao Nian was ready to push his advantage. Veins bulged across his body, crackling with energy as he turned to attack Luo Xin. "Haha! Luo Xin, from now on, you're my woman." The terrified girl scrambled backward. Just as Zhao Nian closed in on her, a familiar shadow flew past, pushing her out of the way, but Luo Xin was still off balance. No. In that instant, Yun Qi lunged forward, swinging his blade for a fatal strike against Zhao Nian. The brute immediately dropped to the ground, dodging the attack. He was completely stunned, having no idea where Yunqi had come from. That was a close call. He instantly suspected Yunqi had a connection with Luo Xin. His eyes blazed with fury, darting back and forth as he snarled, "Oh, so you want her too, huh?" Yunqi, sword in hand, began to back away from Zhao Nian. He spun his blade expertly and replied with an ice-cold tone, "Let me correct you. I'm only interested in her skills." At the same time, Luo Xin played her part perfectly from behind him, immediately channeling her healing power into Yunqi. In this apocalypse, no one could be sure they'd escape injury. Having a mage who could heal was an incredible asset. That dog Zhao Nian knew he couldn't face Yunqi head-on. He snatched a nearby fire extinguisher and roared, "You dare steal what's mine? Are you asking to die?" He then ripped the extinguisher from the wall, his face contorted with rage as he prepared to use it as a weapon. At this point, he was like a complete wild animal, his body bulging with raw, untamed power. In that moment, the towering Zhao Nian used his massive body and terrifying leaping ability, gripping the fire extinguisher to bring it crashing down on Yunqi's head. He screamed, "You'll be the first step on my path to domination." Instantly, the heavy extinguisher slammed toward Yunqi, who raised his sword to block. Zhao Nian poured all his strength into the blow with terrifying force. Straining under the weight of the extinguisher, Yunqi clenched his jaw, desperately trying to hold his ground. But then he noticed something on Zhao Nian's waist. A wound that seemed to be getting worse. Yunqi spotted the weakness. An infection? Has Zhao Nian already been turned? Looking at the man's increasingly discolored face and the drool spilling from his wide, grinning mouth, Yunqi thought, wait. What was it he just said? Could it be? Does the mutation time depend on a person's physical condition? His brow furrowed as his gaze locked onto Zhao Nian. The terrifying reality began to sink in. A soldier's mutation would be exponentially more dangerous than any normal zombie. Seizing the brief window before Zhao Nian's true power could awaken, Yunqi unleashed everything he had. He slammed a brutal blow into the massive man's chest, sending him flying back. Then, gripping his sword with both hands, Yunqi channeled all his energy into the blade, leaping high into the air to deliver a strike this giant would never forget. He swore to himself that he would defuse this ticking time bomb, right here and now. Without a shred of fear or hesitation, Yunqi brought the sword down with incredible force, aiming to split Zhao Nian completely in two. The man's arms and legs splayed out as he took the full impact. Before he could even retaliate, his face twisted into a mask of pure agony. He let out a deranged shriek as crimson blood sprayed across the room. Yunqi's single strike had cleaved him from top to bottom, even splitting the fire extinguisher behind him. Racked with pain, the creature was utterly helpless. He was like a cornered rat, beaten into submission. Crash! The massive body slammed hard against the floor. As the chaos finally subsided, Yunqi stood over the fallen Zhao Nian, now a broken heap at his feet. A gruesome pool of red spread across the floor. From behind, Lu Xin watched, her entire body trembling. The others in the room could only stare in abject horror at the scene. They were writers and programmers, used to keyboards, not bloodshed. How could they possibly comprehend such brutal violence? The young man in front of them turned pale. He had killed again. Lo Han stood behind Van Koi's imposing silhouette, her eyes fixed on him. This was the first time she'd ever seen him like this. So resolute, so powerful. Ahead, Van Koi was aware of the beautiful woman watching him from behind. He merely glanced back, and she immediately averted her eyes in fear. Yunqi thought to himself, some people can only learn the hard way. An experience like this should be enough. He hoped Lu Xin would now remember the consequences of naivety. His gaze then swept across the room, noting how everyone watched him with caution. The others looked at each other in terror, not daring to utter a single word. He observed their fear. Even though he killed Zhao Nian to prevent a mutation, their terror gave him the control he needed. Well, as the strongest person left in the room, his voice dropped to a dangerous low, a clear move to establish his authority. Does anyone else want to argue over leadership? It was a clear warning to anyone with treacherous ideas. The survivors immediately waved their hands in panic, their faces etched with fear and anxiety. No, we wouldn't dare, Yunqi. We just want to live. Only then did Yunqi dismiss his weapon, allowing it to dematerialize into thin air. With that internal conflict resolved, Yunqi turned his head and commanded, "Good. Lu Xin, take care of their wounds." She obediently turned to the three survivors and replied instantly, "Yes." Outside, the horde of zombies was rapidly growing larger. Their fists pounded against the door like thunder. Inside, the kind-hearted Lu Xin began tending to the wounded. She spoke gently to her friend, Jia. "This is my first time doing this. If you feel any discomfort, tell me right away." Meanwhile, Yunqi's attention was drawn to a nearby computer. He walked over, intending to access it, but the screen was a chaotic mess of glitched data, completely unresponsive. Reaching into his pocket, Yunqi pulled out his phone. He glanced between the computer and his phone. Both were useless. All networks were down. It was just as he'd predicted. Every channel of communication had been completely disabled. He realized the only way to connect with the outside world was through the channel provided by the game. He suspected that most other people were reaching the same conclusion. Yunqi opened the system interface. As he expected, the world forum was already flooded with people desperately trying to contact each other. Open game channel. The world chat exploded with messages. Wang Xikong, help, zombies are everywhere. Is anyone in the city center? Please help me. Da Bing. Relax, the council has already dispatched rescue teams. Zhao Ergu. That's a lie. All communications are cut. How would you know what the situation is? I'm gathering survivors at the Central Gold Building. Come if you've got the guts. Reading the messages, Yunqi felt a sharp pang of frustration at this damn apocalypse, but also a strange sense of solidarity with the desperate voices on the forum. Most people were isolated and helpless. Survival now depended entirely on your own strength. Suddenly, a system window materialized right in front of him. Yunqi looked up as his personal details filled the screen. Name: Yunqi. Identity: Novice Village NPC. Level: 1. Experience: 130 out of 200. Class: Nether Knight. Strength: 9. Agility: 9. Spirit: 10. Constitution: 10. Compatibility: 10%. Personal talent: Child of the Universe. You can designate up to 3 stats to be multiplied by 10 during combat. If made permanent, the increase is 100 times. Cooldown: 24 hours. Class specialty: Death's Decay. Current skills: none. As he finished reading, a single thought consumed his mind. A 10-fold increase to my stats? In battle, the only things that mattered were points and compatibility. But what did 10% compatibility truly mean? He stroked his chin, pondering the mystery. There was also the permanent 100 times multiplier, a king-level skill. He knew he shouldn't use it rashly, not while he was still figuring out the game's early stages. Once the tutorial phase ended, there would be countless challenges ahead. That ability would be his trump card. With that, he chose a different upgrade, deciding to temporarily increase his points by 10 times for now. Instantly, the system flashed a notification. Adjustment successful. Point accumulation rate multiplied by 10. A surge of power coursed through Van Koi's entire body. He clenched his fists, absorbing the incredible new energy. Excellent. With this 10 times buff, I'll grow stronger 10 times faster than anyone else. Meanwhile, Lo Han had completely drained her energy, healing everyone in the room. She could feel her body growing weak. Lo Han clutched her stomach and whispered, "So hungry. Does using magic consume this much stamina?" A sudden, gnawing hunger overwhelmed her. Fresh from his power-up, Van Koi glanced around the room. He saw his comrades, both starving and exhausted, with a horde of zombies pressing in from outside. There's nothing for us in this conference room, he thought. Hiding like this will only lead to exhaustion. Van Koi's jaw tightened. This was a difficult position. There were still 20 hours until the game officially launched for all players. As if foreseeing the future, Van Koi felt a chilling fear in his heart that he dared not speak aloud. In 20 hours, he feared Blue Star would face a disaster even more horrific than the zombie outbreak. At that thought, his hand summoned his sword once again. I have to earn as many points as possible before this tutorial phase is over. Seeing Van Koi raise his sword and prepare to go outside, the others began to panic. Van Koi, what are you doing? You're not seriously planning to go out there, are you? But Van Koi didn't bother to answer, his expression as cold and silent as ever. They were terrified that the moment he left, the zombies would swarm in and attack them. An old woman rushed to block his path, shouting, "Are you insane? It's crawling with the undead out there. If you open that door, they'll pour in and tear us to pieces." The others were frozen in fear, unable to speak. Lo Han felt a pang of despair, but she too remained silent. Facing the foolishness in the room, Van Koi's powerful aura flared. He uttered 2 ice-cold words, "Move." Despite the incredible danger, Van Koi was resolved to leave and fight what lay beyond. Lo Han couldn't hold back any longer. Overcome with weakness, she reached for him, terrified that he would be hurt. "Van Koi, do you absolutely have to go? It's so dangerous out there. We were so lucky to find this hiding spot." Van Koi turned, his face a mask of disgust as he confronted them. "Without supplies, hiding here is just a slow death. I'm going to wipe out the zombies outside. If you want to stay here and wait to die, then And yet, these people still clung to their idiotic way of thinking. The old woman in front of him just screamed, "Waiting for death is better than rushing to it." Two others chimed in, shouting at Van Koy, terrified they would be permanently logged out of existence. "That's right. Do you know how many monsters are out there? It's fine for you to say with a weapon, but what about us? We're unarmed. How are we supposed to survive?" However, ignoring the useless chatter of these fools, Van Koy stubbornly gripped his sword and headed for the door. Lohan ran over in a panic and grabbed his arm. "Van Koy, maybe we should wait a little longer. The army is bound to show up soon. If we just wait for help, we'll be safe." Hearing these words, Van Koy paused for a moment, glancing back at her, but he quickly dismissed the idea, muttering to himself, "With this apocalyptic game's interference, an official rescue is unlikely." Amid the heated argument in the room, a loud noise suddenly erupted from the broken window. The people in the room looked out in alarm. Van Koy and Lohan were stunned, and as they stepped forward to see, they said in unison, "Huh? What is that?" Outside, incredibly advanced fighter jets were flying among the city's skyscrapers, approaching their location. No one had any idea where these aircraft came from. From one of the jets, a man's voice boomed over a loudspeaker. "This is the mobile aerial fortress of the military alliance. I am Zhao Liang, captain of the 3rd Vanguard Unit. To all of humanity on Blue Star, do not give up." Powerful battleships soared across every front. They were desperately trying to fight back against the zombie onslaught. The loudspeaker blared from above, giving the survivors hope. "The military has dispatched 10 teams to conduct rescue operations. We expect to have the situation under control within 3 hours. Anyone who can, get to the rooftops. We will provide support." On the streets below, the remaining survivors were locked in a desperate battle with the zombie horde. Hearing this was like being thrown a lifeline in a sea of despair. "That's it. Rescue is here. Everyone, with me to the roof. Now." The broadcast from the massive aircraft continued overhead. "For those unable to move, find secure shelter and wait for extraction." Below, a young woman struggles desperately to hold off a zombie lunging in for the attack. When she heard the news, tears of joy streamed down her face. "Rescue is here. This nightmare is finally ending." Back in the office with Yunqi and the other survivors, everyone listened to the transmission from the rescue team. The voice promised that as long as they stayed safe and avoided infection, the military would never abandon anyone. Elation erupted on every face as they rushed to the windows, cheering at the sight of the aircraft. Lu Xun cried out, "It's true! The army really came to save us." But then, the final hope for humanity began to falter. The pilot's voice crackled. "We will do our best to save every." Before he could finish, a sinister energy swarmed the cockpit, choking the words in his throat. Those were his last words. The message of hope was brutally cut short, replaced by an announcement from this damn apocalypse game. Beep. To ensure proper game operation, interference is now being cleared. A massive explosion ripped through the sky as that dark energy detonated the most advanced aircraft on the planet. In the room below, the tiny spark of hope that had just been lit was instantly and brutally extinguished before their very eyes. The wreckage of the aircraft that was meant to be their salvation rained down from the sky in fiery pieces. Everything was gone. The massive fuselage slammed into a nearby skyscraper, triggering a catastrophic collapse. On the chaotic streets below, survivors and zombies alike were caught in the terrifying aftermath. They scattered in every direction, their panicked screams echoing through the city. By a cruel twist of fate, the collapsing skyscraper was the very same one Yunqi's group was in. As the building began to give way, Yunqi and his team sprinted forward, fighting against the crushing pull of gravity. They were in a desperate battle for their lives as the apocalyptic scenery unfolded, with more aircraft exploding and falling from the sky, crashing into buildings, turning the city to rubble. Inside the tilting room, Yunqi slammed his sword deep into the floor. The floor's steep angle sent the others behind him plunging into the abyss, with nothing to hold on to. But thanks to his embedded sword, Yunqi held his ground, desperately clutching Lu Xun's hand. In this life-or-death moment, Lu Xun's will to live was absolute. She looked up at him, tears streaming down her face, and begged, "Yunqi, save me." The situation was a tragedy, with no end in sight. He was trying to save 2 lives with a single sword, all while Earth's gravity relentlessly tried to tear them down. He held tightly to the beautiful healer, knowing she would be crucial for his survival later. Yunqi gritted his teeth in frustration. "Damn it," he thought. "This is a hell mode opening for sure." A server-wide system announcement echoed. To maintain a sufficient number of NPCs for players to eliminate. Now deploying supply drops. NPCs, please find items and survive on your own. Yunqi stared at the notification for a long moment. Was this a sick joke, or a real opportunity? Either way, for him, It was an impossible choice. He was still in the middle of a life-and-death struggle for two people. Yunqi looked down and signaled to Lu Xun. On the count of 3, we jump. The moment she heard this, Lu Xun's face went pale with terror. Feeling like a burden, she screamed back at him. What? Wait, from this height, even if we survive, we'll be crippled. But there was no more time for hesitation. Yunqi instantly retrieved his weapon. He lunged downward, grabbing the beauty by the waist. Yunqi truly had a talent for taking risks, daring to leap from that height with a girl in his arms. He shouted a firm 3. Lu Xun clung to him for dear life, surrendering to fate as she squeezed her eyes shut and let out a deafening scream. But Yunqi wasn't an ordinary person. With his natural hack-level talents unlocked, he was on another level. He used the falling concrete slabs as stepping stones, moving with impossible grace through the air. He plummeted in a freefall, yet remained in complete control. A moment later, they both landed safely. Yunqi used his own knees to absorb the brutal force of the impact. He held Lu Xun tightly in his arms as they crashed into the ground. They had made it. Yunqi stood up straight, still holding Lu Xun close while she, terrified, didn't dare to open her eyes. Right behind him, massive chunks of concrete smashed into the ground, sending up clouds of dust and shrapnel. Only when the danger seemed to have passed did Lu Xun slowly dare to peek. Yunqi's deep, warm voice cut through her fear. It's okay now. Opening her eyes to his handsome face holding her tight, Lu Xun was overcome with a complex mix of relief and darker thoughts. Thank you, she said, her voice laced with shyness as her slender legs finally touched solid ground again. But the second they landed, Yunqi's attention was already captured by several small chests right in front of them. He sheathed his sword and immediately walked towards them. Lu Xun watched him go, her curiosity piqued. Neatly stacked blue crates lined the area. A sudden realization hit Luo Han, and she gasped, Wait, those are supplies. The shocking truth dawned on her. Could it be? Did he jump down here specifically because he saw those supplies? Watching Yunqi's imposing figure walk ahead, Luo Han was in awe of his incredible, almost unbelievable strength. To think, in a situation this dangerous, he still had the presence of mind to spot vital resources. His adaptability was on another level. Just as Yunqi moved towards the supplies, a hulking zombie suddenly appeared right in front of him. It lunged, trying to grab Yunqi. Its skin was slimy and blackened, looking as if it had starved for days. Yunqi instantly blocked the creature with his blade. He stared it down, his eyes holding not a single trace of fear. It was as if battle was etched into his very soul. The zombie hissed, its putrid breath washing over him as it relentlessly pushed forward. Annoyed, Yunqi muttered, Another one? With a flash of his blade, he unleashed a powerful horizontal slash to end his irritation. But this creature was different. It skillfully retreated, dodging the attack. In that moment, Yunqi sensed this was no ordinary zombie from the floors above. He mirrored its movement, leaping back to maintain a safe distance. This only seemed to enrage the zombie even more. Its eyes blazed a fiery red as a horrifying shriek tore from its slobbering mouth. The commotion and the scent of humans attracted more. 2 more zombies began crawling out from the surrounding wreckage. Yunqi spotted them instantly, but the sight made Luo Han tremble in terror. She glanced behind her, only to see 2 more figures lurking in the shadows. In an instant, they were completely surrounded. The horde was far larger than they thought. They gathered, slowly closing in to devour the 2 delectable morsels before them. Fear paralyzed Luo Han. Yunqi, she stammered. We're surrounded. In this dire situation, they moved back to back, as Yunqi calmly assessed the overwhelming number of zombies. The horde crept closer, eager to tear them limb from limb. Yunqi spoke one word. Plan. Too many zombies. When I move, we split up. Don't follow me. But at that moment, Luo Han was overcome with absolute terror. Split up? She asked, her voice shaking. What if they chase me? What do I do? There was no time to hesitate. With a swing of his sword, Yunqi darted in another direction. He drew a massive part of the horde after him, leaving the beauty to face the rest of the ghouls. Just keep them running in a circle, he yelled. In a flash, Yunqi cut down the first zombie in his path. It coughed up black blood as it collapsed from the devastating blow. The system announced, Level 1 zombie eliminated, 100 points acquired. He was now a good distance from Luo Han. He shouted back, his voice carrying across the distance. Remember what I said. A frenzied mob of zombies now chased Yunqi. He was deliberately leading them away, splitting their forces. The mindless creatures followed his every move, drawn only by the alluring scent of human flesh, falling perfectly into his trap. Luo Han was on her own now. She ran with all her might, a scream tearing from her throat as she fled. Ah! The zombies were hot on her heels, Tears of panic streamed down her face as she pushed her body to its absolute limit, crying out in desperation. Even if you say that, I don't know how to kite these monsters. Just as Luo Han managed to pull half the remaining zombies after her, Yunqi had already dealt with most of his pursuers. He was as brilliant as he was strong. His strategy made the impossible task manageable, far easier than facing the entire encircled horde at once. Meanwhile, Luo Han was still running for her life. After picking off the zombies chasing him one by one, Yunqi sped towards the damsel in distress. See? You're a pretty good lure. Luo Han jumped, her face lighting up with relief at the sight of Yunqi's handsome face. Yunqi! There's only a small group left. With a firm grip on his sword, he unleashed a flurry of strikes. One zombie after another was cut down. Slashes tore through their decaying bodies, spraying foul, black blood everywhere. System notification. 3 level 1 zombies eliminated. 300 points acquired. Yunqi had swiftly broken through the encirclement. But just when they thought it was over, Luo Han's eyes widened in horror. Another massive wave of zombies was charging right at them. Why is there another wave? Without a second's hesitation, Yunqi seemed to grow even more excited by the challenge. He said nothing, simply launching himself at the foolish horde to tear them apart. This time, his swordsmanship was even more refined. He moved like a phantom, his blade flashing from one ghoul to the next. Everywhere he went, zombies fell like wheat before a scythe. Finally, Yunqi stood still, surrounded by a mountain of the fallen undead. He looked unbelievably heroic and cool. Bathed in the morning light, he stood before Luo Han like a living nightmare for every low-level zombie. All around him, the last of the creatures writhed in agony, twitching on the ground, completely powerless against him now. A moment later, their convulsions stopped. The zombies were truly dead, their bodies finally still. Only then did the beautiful Luo Han let out a deep sigh of relief. She slumped against a nearby wall, catching her breath. Haha, we're finally safe. But while Luo Xin was a nervous wreck, Yunqi was thrilled. His power kept surging, boosted by a 10 times point multiplier. Slaughtering zombies was incredibly profitable, especially when it meant scoring restricted weapons. Why didn't she just send a portable Gatling gun? With my family's power, something like that should be a piece of cake. Still riding the high of his victory, Yunqi suddenly remembered. He'd almost forgotten about the supply drop. He rushed over to the supply boxes, only to see them crushed under heavy concrete slabs. Without a second thought, Yunqi heaved the largest piece of concrete aside. A system notification popped up. Congratulations, you have discovered a system supply drop. You receive 1,000 points. Hint, your score can be viewed on the leaderboard. Reading that last part, Yunqi froze in his tracks. A points leaderboard? The system clearly displayed the current rankings. Number 1, Fang Qian, with 3,430 points. Number 2, Yuan Jin, with 3,060 points. Number 3, Yunqi, with 2,840 points. Seeing his own rank on the system, Yunqi finally began to grasp the true extent of his strength, but his mind was reeling with questions about the leaderboard. To think my name is listed alongside Fang Qian and Yuan Jin. Those two were living legends. Symbols for the entire human alliance. There was war god Fang Qian, a commoner who rose through the ranks to become commander of the Hero Alliance through pure merit, and Speaker Yuan Jin, patriarch of the Yuan clan, one of the 7 great families, known as the brain of the parliament. Even as the world ended, as long as those two were still alive, they served as the strongest tranquilizer for all the survivors on the planet. Realizing this, Yunqi grew a bit apprehensive, thinking it over for a long moment. Over 3,000 points. If that was just from killing monsters, it's inhuman. But those two have elite soldiers under their command, so they must be getting a lot of points from collecting supplies. He then tapped on a system option, confirming his choice to remain anonymous on the leaderboard. Yunqi was thinking smart. He wanted to conceal his power to ensure his own safety. They are the apex of this world, he thought. Having my name next to theirs will definitely attract too much attention. Better to keep a low profile. Just then, a curious Luo Xin walked over and asked, Yunqi, what's inside the supply crate? But Yunqi didn't tell her anything about the leaderboard. He pretended as if he was just opening it now, saying, let me see. The moment the chest lid flew open, a series of system notifications flooded Yunqi's vision, detailing the items inside. 2 level 1 life recovery potions, 2 level 1 combat burst potions, 1 level 1 antidote, and 1 razor-sharp dagger. Every single item was incredibly useful right now. Yunqi's face brightened instantly, his eyes shining as if he'd just discovered gold. Or rather, in these times, Were medical supplies the new gold? He picked up a vial, looking at it with a fond expression. Good. With these potions, I can handle common injuries myself. He then glanced over at the beautiful Minere, who was still looking at the contents of the box with wide-eyed curiosity. A wicked and cunning look flashed across our hero's face. With these items, maybe I don't need to drag Luo Xin along anymore. She has no combat power and is always causing trouble. Could it be that our main character is planning on ditching this doll? Suddenly, in that moment of distraction, Yunqi sensed a strange object hurtling towards him. He instantly drew his sword and prepared himself. It was another zombie, but this one was far stronger than the others, and it was aiming straight for Yunqi. This one was female. It opened its mouth wide, revealing sharp teeth and a monstrous grin, its glowing eyes locking onto Yunqi as it slammed into him. Its strength was on a whole other level. He had to brace himself with all his might just to resist it. Knowing how dangerous it was, he roared at Luo Xin, who was right behind him. Get back! Terrified, she still hesitated. Luo Xin looked back and warned him. I know, you be careful. As soon as he knew Luo Xin was safe, Yunqi confidently brandished his sword and unleashed his power. He pulled his sword back, startling the zombie, then unleashed a powerful thrust that plunged into its body before kicking off the ground and leaping away with incredible agility. But at that moment, standing before Yunqi, the zombie was completely unharmed. He watched its graceful, slinking shadow with awe. So fast, the thought had barely formed in his mind when the well-endowed zombie lunged forward again. It moved like lightning, its sharp claws aimed straight at Yunqi. He looked up, completely stunned. Yunqi had just powered up, but he was still caught off guard by such a difficult zombie. This one knew exactly where to strike. It flew forward, its sharp claws aiming right for Yunqi's crotch. He skillfully dodged the attack. That was a close call. Otherwise, his precious jewels would have been out of commission for good. Refusing to give up, the zombie launched a relentless barrage of attacks, creating powerful explosions that chipped away at Yunqi's strength. Yunqi immediately leaped back to create some distance, holding his sword firmly in a defensive stance. He hadn't managed to do anything to it yet. Now it slowly rose to its feet. He looked forward. The zombie was still in a frenzy, desperate to claim his sweet body. Even as the third-ranked player on the system, he had to be wary of this monster's overwhelming power when facing it head-on. This zombie was the same size as Luo Han, but its attack power was easily double that of a normal one. Could this be a mutation beyond a level 1 monster? Just then, he pulled out the energy vial he'd just found. Yunqi slammed the injector into his own shoulder, pumping the energy directly into his body for a desperate boost. This is getting messy. Guess I have no choice. A system notification flashed before his eyes. You have injected a level 1 combat burst serum. All combat attributes increased by 20%. Duration, 10 seconds. After reading that notification, Yunqi nearly collapsed. He wanted to scream at the pathetic duration the serum provided. Only 10 seconds? What kind of knockoff is this? But he'd barely had a moment to process it when the zombie lunged straight for him. He struggled just to raise his sword to defend himself, but once the serum fully kicked in, Yunqi surged forward to finish the monster. He had to take what he could get. It was better than nothing. Empowered by the serum, taking this thing down suddenly seemed possible. Yunqi drove his blade deep into the unfortunate zombie's shoulder. The creature staggered backward, howling in agony. The wound sent waves of pain through the undead beast. It opened its maw and released a deafening shriek. Its bone-white hand gripped the blade, trying to rip it free. But Yunqi held his ground, refusing to let it dislodge the weapon. The zombie raised its other hand, claws ready to tear into him. Yunqi saw the attack coming instantly, but even so, the creature's speed was overwhelming. Its claws slashed across his handsome face, drawing blood. Watching the fight from afar, Luo Han gasped in horror when she saw him get injured. Yunqi. The zombie's attack was brutal, but the pain only served to fuel his simmering rage. Shoving with all his might, he drove the sword in deeper. The zombie was forced back by the sheer force of his assault. It thrashed wildly, its sharp claws scraping against his blade. This thing's power had clearly evolved to another level, but with the strength of a mere rookie, Yunqi was no match for it. Slowly, he was being pushed back toward a wall. Even with a sword lodged in its shoulder, the monster was strong enough to pin Yunqi against the wall. He strained every muscle, trying to hold back the ferocious creature. With his time running out, Yunqi grit his teeth in frustration. Damn it, the boost is wearing off. If only I'd grabbed all the supplies when I had the chance. He glanced at the supply crate, knowing he had to find a way back to it. Just then, the zombie went completely berserk. Its body convulsed violently as it let out a grotesque shriek. A sinister energy flared in its glowing red eyes. Yunqi grit his teeth and kicked off the wall behind him. He landed a crushing blow to the zombie's jaw, while driving the sword even deeper with his other hand. Seizing the opening, Yunqi wrenched his sword free. He immediately dashed in the opposite direction, leaving the stunned zombie behind. This was his golden opportunity. He sprinted towards the supply crate. Getting more items was his only hope now. But the zombie wasn't done yet. It roared and gave chase. He glanced back. Damn it, it's fast. At that moment, 2 more energy vials flew through the air. With lightning-fast reflexes, Yunqi snatched them both. Still sprinting for his life, he thought, "What are these?" He looked back in astonishment toward Luo Han. She was standing by the supply crate. She had thrown him the serums just in time. He was stunned she'd actually done something so useful. Luo Han? He watched as she raised her small dagger, gathering a faint, healing energy around the blade. "Hey, you undead freak!" As Yunqi and the zombie charged right for her, Luo Han gripped her weapon and yelled at the top of her lungs. "Over here, look at me." Even a cornered rabbit will bite back when it has no other choice. In that moment, Luo Han finally understood she had to fight. Tears streamed down her face as she screamed, "Look at me! Come on! Look at me!" The timid girl unleashed all of her pent-up frustration. She clutched the tiny dagger, crying as if her tears could flood the room. The zombie saw this pathetic display and seemed to wonder if she was even a real threat. Suddenly, Yunqi skidded to a halt, his boots scraping violently against the concrete floor. He then slammed both injectors into his arm at the same time. He was almost impressed with what Luo Han had done. That fool. She's actually useful when it counts. Behind him, the zombie was still charging forward mindlessly. It continued its frantic charge, but something made it stop dead in its tracks. In front of it, Yunqi had turned around. He gripped his sword as a massive surge of power erupted from his body. It felt like a tempest, releasing an overwhelming pressure. The zombie actually recoiled in fear. A system notification appeared. You have injected a level 1 combat burst serum. All combat attributes increased by 20%. Duration, 10 seconds. You have injected a level 1 vitality serum. Pain sensitivity reduced by 80%. Duration, 10 seconds. In an instant, Yunqi felt like a different person, an unstoppable force. He could feel the power surging through his very core. His power dwarfed the creature's, far beyond its league. Van Koy leveled his blade, radiating an overwhelming killing aura. He glared at the ferocious zombie, which clung to him like a persistent leech. His voice dropped to a terrifying low. Time to be a man for the next 10 seconds. Just as Van Koy turned to counterattack, the undead hag refused to yield, lunging forward in a frenzy to tear him apart. Power erupted from every cell in Van Koy's body as he launched himself into the air with explosive force, meeting the zombie in a head-on collision. The two forces crashed together. But as the zombie lunged, Van Koy vanished, instantly reappearing behind its back in a blur of motion. This was the finishing blow. Taking advantage of the zombie's blind spot, he began channeling immense energy into his blade. With a final, devastating surge of power, he swung his sword, cleaving the monster in two at the waist. It lunged forward, finding nothing but air. From behind, he delivered the final, full-powered strike. The zombie's body was now completely severed. Its torso and legs fell in opposite directions. The creature collapsed to the ground, its strength fading fast. But its mouth still let out a few final, guttural groans. Having finally dealt with the hungry leech, Van Koy stood over it, observing for a long moment. Luo Han quickly ran to his side. "Van Koy, are you all right?" she cried out, immediately activating her healing powers. A warm light enveloped Van Koy's body. His wounds began to close rapidly, a soothing sensation washing over him. Luo Han spoke with a gentle voice. "Let me heal you." Then she softly chanted, "Holy light." In that single moment, something shifted in the way Van Koy saw Luo Han. Her growth, it was much faster than he ever imagined. He remembered the timid girl she used to be, and how bravely she had stood her ground. She had actually fought alongside him against that monster. Meanwhile, Luo Han was thinking, Van Koy is on another level. He could have abandoned me after getting the supplies, but he saved my life. I have to give it my all to help him through this. Lost in her thoughts, Luo Han quickly finished mending the wounds on Van Koy's arm. He felt an incredible sense of relief as he saw his arm return to its normal state. "All done," she said softly. A flicker of excitement crossed his face as he thought, "This magic feels incredibly warm and soothing. Having a healer on the team is more valuable than any supply cache." Once the healing was complete, Van Koy grabbed his sword and walked off. Luo Han watched him, confused by his sudden action. He then bent down and picked up a small dagger from the ground. Turning back, he held it out to Luo Han. "Go on," he said. Finish that female zombie. Plunge this dagger into its heart. That's all it takes. For a girl who had lived a normal life, being asked to kill a zombie was terrifying. Lohan stammered, her voice trembling. Me? Seeing her hesitation, Van Koy's expression turned serious. Look, we have no idea what the future holds. The only thing that matters now is getting stronger, and it's not just about me. You need points, too. His words seemed to strike a chord with her. Timidly, she reached out and took the small dagger. An internal battle raged within her, but she knew. Van Koy was right. I have to become stronger. I can't just rely on him forever. Clutching the dagger, Lohan still felt weak and timid. She slowly approached the zombie's writhing upper torso, which was still struggling despite being severed from its legs. Lohan gripped the dagger with both hands, trying to shield her eyes from the gruesome sight. Summoning every last ounce of courage, she squeezed her eyes shut, raised the blade high, and plunged it down. A piercing scream tore from her lungs. Triple A. The shriek was followed by the sickening thud of steel sinking deep into flesh. Dark red blood erupted like a geyser, splattering everywhere. The creature's gurgling screams began to fade, growing weaker by the second. Slowly, Lohan withdrew the small dagger. She had done it. With her own two hands. She watched until the zombie finally went still, its unlife extinguished for good. She had done it all by herself. Instantly, a system window popped up before her eyes. Level 5, Zombie eliminated. 500 points acquired. Congratulations, you have received a special reward. Healing Art, Level 1. A single target skill effective against external injuries. Just moments ago, she was consumed by fear. But seeing her points skyrocket, Lohan broke into a wide, triumphant grin. She turned to Van Koy, beaming. Thank you, Van Koy. I got 500 points. And I even learned a new healing skill. Hearing this, Van Koy froze, completely stunned. He never would have expected that. His composure shattered, and he collapsed to the ground. Van Koy fell to his hands and knees, weeping with utter regret. I can't believe I gave that kill to that simple-minded girl. 500 points. With my 10 times multiplier, that would have been 5,000 points. Enough to shoot me to the top of the rankings. I could have surpassed the Alliance's war god and the council chairman. And it even dropped a skill book? Oh, cruel fate. Are there any more level 5 zombies for me to kill? Seeing Van Koy's bizarre reaction, Lohan was completely lost. Van Koy, are you okay? She asked, puzzled. How could he admit his regret after acting so cool for her? All Van Koy could do now was swallow the bitter tears of regret. I'm fine, he choked out. Just suddenly feeling a bit tired. He remembered how he'd almost kicked her out, seeing her as nothing more than dead weight. But now, his plans had done a complete 180. Looks like I have to keep this priceless healer close, he schemed. Letting her go now would be an absolute waste, benefiting someone else. And with that, the danger in this area was over. Van Koy turned to her, already thinking about their next move. Let's go. We're out of supplies. Our top priority is finding a safe place to hole up. Just then, Lohan called out his name. A curious Van Koy turned to face her. Right before his eyes, Lohan struck an adorable pose. She looked him straight in the eye and whispered, I know a place with tons of supplies. The scene cuts to another part of the city, one much quieter than the area, around their old office. Though the signs of a zombie presence were still everywhere, the pair moved cautiously down a side street, their eyes scanning every dark alleyway for a potential ambush. The main road was littered with zombie corpses, but there wasn't a living soul in sight. Lohan spoke up. Van Koy, it looks like a huge battle took place here. The undead are completely wiped out. But he immediately corrected her. Stay sharp. All it takes is one that got away, and we're dead. Hiding behind a wall, they prepared to cross the wide-open street. Van Koy was extremely cautious. He slowly peeked around the corner and whispered, The shelter you mentioned. It's not the Green Bay apartment complex across the street, is it? As his eyes fell upon the building, he knew. He said to her, That's your home, isn't it? Lohan froze. She shuffled closer to Van Koy in surprise. Huh? How did you know? He gave her a blunt reply. Back at the office, I always heard the guys talking about taking you home. I'm not stupid. I just put 2 and 2 together. Panicked that her ulterior motive was exposed, Lohan began to nervously wave her hands in front of him, blurting out, Okay, I did have my own reasons. I wanted to see if my parents are safe, but I wasn't lying. My mom is a total hoarder. She loves organic fruits, and she's always stashing tons of vegetables in the attic. There's enough to feed us for a long, long time. Her imagination even began to drift towards other, more distant possibilities. Lo Han shyly turned her head away, unable to meet his gaze. If you want, you could stay at my house. I'd like for you to meet my parents. But it seemed Van Koy had no time for Lo Han's romantic fantasies. He looked straight ahead, his decision made. There were no better options, he thought to himself. We've come this far. It'd be a shame to turn back now. Besides, the undead around here have already been cleared out. We'll just consider this a supply run. After a moment, he gave his consent. Let's move. A thrilled Lo Han took the lead, her steps suddenly filled with energy and confidence. Yes, it's right up ahead. Suddenly, Van Koy grabbed her arm, stopping her cold. Hold on. Before we go, did you remember all the rules I drilled into you? Lo Han turned back, a blank look on her face. Huh. She quickly tried to play it cool, putting her hands on her hips and declaring, Don't worry, I remember everything. In this apocalypse, besides zombies, there are 3 types of people you should never provoke. 1. People who mastered combat techniques before the apocalypse. If their attributes are similar to yours, their combat power will be much higher. The assassin class. Primary attribute, agility. Secondary, strength. Note, when in close combat, they ignore 15% of a target's defense. The assassin class especially can even have bonus professional skills. 2. Sharpshooters. Right now, everyone's a level 1 newbie. A single bullet can kill us, and according to the rules, only sharpshooters can even use guns. The sharpshooter class. Primary attribute, agility. Secondary, spirit. Note, they can equip firearms. When attacking from a distance, their hit rate increases by 25%. Because of that, sharpshooters are extremely dangerous. If you see one, you run. 3. Beast tamers. They don't have to fight. They just command their pets to charge in for them. Right now, they're the absolute kings of the newbie zone. The beast tamer class, primary attribute, constitution, secondary, spirit. Note, for every pet they activate, their own constitution increases by 3%, and the pet's attack increases by 3%. This can stack up to 3 times. Hearing Lo Han recite the rules by heart, Van Koy finally relaxed a little. With his sword ready, he took the lead and moved ahead of the young woman. Following behind, Lo Han asked curiously, So out of the 6 basic classes, 3 of them are that dangerous? Are they really that strong? Van Koy turned back, his expression serious as he shared his knowledge. Absolutely. And you have to be especially careful of sharpshooters. If you clash with a sharpshooter, you'll be dead before you even know what happened. Just then, an unusual glint of light flashed nearby. The beam landed right on Van Koy's chest. He looked down, and his heart skipped a beat. Before he could even process it, a shot rang out. From far away, a high-caliber bullet came screaming directly toward Van Koy. His superhuman reflexes saved him, allowing him to dodge just in time. Van Koy yelled out in a panic, "Sniper rifle!" Lo Han was scared stiff, her eyes wide with worry for him. Van Koy. Looking closer, they saw a convoy of military VIP vehicles up ahead. A laser sight from a nearby rooftop was pointed right at them. A man lay prone on the hood of a truck, skillfully handling a long-range sniper rifle. He looked through his scope and spoke into a radio. In Sector A southeast, 2 zombies appeared. Even from afar, Yunchi could feel the sniper's aim, sending a shiver of fear down his spine. For a marksman like himself, it was a cruel twist of fate. He and Luo Xin immediately raised their hands, proving they were still human. Yunchi took the initiative and carefully approached. "Don't shoot," he called out. "We're just passing through." But the man was on high alert. "In this ruined world, you couldn't trust anyone," he shouted back. "Freeze! If you want to live, prove you're not one of them." The tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. One wrong move, and it would be game over. Yunchi was at a loss. "Prove it?" he asked. "How are we supposed to do that?" As if on cue, a nearby zombie stirred, slowly crawling towards him. Despite missing an arm and a leg, it was still a threat, drawn in by the irresistible scent of the living. Its eyes blazed with a horrifying light as it let out a ghastly scream. And just like that, Yunchi had his proof. In a flash, he lunged forward, his blade severing the zombie's head in one clean motion. No words, just pure, decisive action. The system chimed in his mind. Level 1 zombie eliminated. 100 points acquired. Staring down at the mangled corpse he'd just created, Yunchi felt a grim satisfaction at the easy points. "I only did that to clear their suspicion," he thought. "But earning points this way isn't half bad." He pinned another struggling zombie with his sword, then yelled to Luo Xin, "Don't just stand there. Get the final blow. These are free points." The system announced. Level 1 zombie eliminated. 100 points acquired. Spurred into action, Luo Xin rushed forward. "Oh, right. She could summon things now too. She focused her energy, and a small dagger materialized in her hands. The first stab was hesitant, filled with fear. But the second felt natural. Luo Xin adapted quickly, attacking the zombie Yunqi had indicated. Luo Xin's system announced, Level 1 zombie eliminated, 10 points acquired. After that, notifications began flooding in for both Yunqi and Luo Xin. Level 1 zombie eliminated, 100 points acquired. Level 1 zombie eliminated, 10 points acquired. Level 1 zombie eliminated, 100 points acquired. After witnessing Yunqi and the beautiful girl effortlessly mow down the zombies, the sniper finally stood up straight and yelled, looking completely exasperated. Hey kid, get your girlfriend over here right now. Stop stealing our points. Hearing this, Yunqi glanced down at the dead zombies at his feet and simply clicked his tongue. What a waste. But beside him, Luo Xin's face turned bright red. All she could focus on was the sniper's words. Girlfriend? Convinced the pair wasn't infected, the group finally allowed Yunqi and Luo Xin into their fortified zone. A woman came forward on the sniper's orders, carefully inspecting them for any open wounds. Looking past her, they saw a large, diverse group of survivors. As Yunqi assessed the situation, his expression grew guarded. After a moment, he realized this wasn't just a random group. It was an organized team. He muttered to himself, looks like this squad is mostly made up of marksmen. He could also spot a mage type, along with what appeared to be knights, warriors, and even a beast tamer, each holding an optimal position. He wasn't just impressed by their composition, he admired how quickly they had adapted to have such a well-structured team so early in the apocalypse. The leader of this squad must be a professional, or from the military. The woman finished her inspection and reported back, Deputy, the two are clean. No wounds. Hearing this, the man called Deputy broke into a wide, friendly grin. He said immediately, to move like that and not get infected. You ran into our enforcement team. I'd say you two are pretty lucky. The man's friendly attitude made Yunqi lower his guard slightly. He stepped closer and asked curiously, the enforcement team? Are you guys officers from the City Security Bureau? The deputy answered with genuine enthusiasm. That's right. When the apocalypse began, the city center was overrun with the undead. Captain Han led us to raid the armory and set up a perimeter to evacuate everyone. He honestly explained everything to Yunqi. We've already cleared the nearby streets and we're about to pull out, so I meant it when I said you two are lucky. Hearing this, it all started to make sense to Yunqi. He glanced at the dead zombies nearby and thought, no wonder we only saw the undead on our way here. There was no one left. As they were speaking, the sound of approaching footsteps cut through the air. The moment this person appeared, the deputy and the woman immediately snapped to attention, saluting sharply. Captain Han. Yunqi and Luo Xin stood frozen, looking at the newcomer whose identity they didn't know. At the deputy's call, Captain Han appeared. He had a cold, decisive aura about him. Upon arriving, Captain Han said nothing, his sharp gaze immediately fixed on the two new arrivals in his zone. He then walked directly up to Yunqi and spoke first. He introduced himself and got straight to the point with his questions. I am Han captain of the enforcement team. Are you two survivors who just arrived? Why have you come here? Trusting the man's demeanor, Luo Han hurried forward, answering on Yunqi's behalf. Hello, Captain Han. We're from Green Bay. Do you know what the situation is like over there? My parents are still inside. The mention of that district made even Captain Han's expression darken. He looked at Luo Han with a grim and heavy gaze. Green Bay, you say? That place is a death trap. If your parents are still there, I fear there's no hope for them. Luo Han had only survived this long for one reason, to reunite with her parents. But those words sent her spiraling into an abyss of despair. What did you say? Luo Han's world shattered. She never imagined this nightmare would claim her family. Yunqi quickly moved to support the trembling girl. While Luo Han was completely devastated, Yunqi remained unshaken, looking up to press Captain Han for more details. Captain Han, all communications are down. How can you be so certain there are no survivors? At this question, the vice captain bristled with anger. He stormed forward, shouting right in Yunqi's face, Hey, are you questioning our captain's judgment? But the captain was the picture of calm. He raised a hand to stop his impulsive subordinate and said in a low voice, Stand down. Then, with that same resolute calm, he faced Yunqi and answered directly. My team and I have been broadcasting on all channels to reach survivors. At first, we got responses from Green Bay, but 30 minutes ago, they went completely silent. On top of that, the horde pouring in from that direction is massive. Most of them seem to be from Green Bay. I fear the entire district has been overrun. Even with weapons, one person stands no chance against that horde. This news painted a truly grim picture of the situation. As much as Yunqi wanted to help Luo Han, there was nothing more he could do. Captain Han's tone was sincere, yet firm. He spoke quietly. I'm advising you, don't do anything reckless. Right now, the best way to honor your parents is to stay alive, not throw your life away. Yunqi held the poor girl close, looking into her sorrowful eyes as a thought crossed his mind. Captain Han's assessment is probably right. Luo Han's parents, they're likely gone. Going to Green Bay now would be suicide. I just hope she doesn't do something rash. They had barely exchanged a few words when a new disturbance erupted nearby. In the distance, a terrifying commotion began to stir. The ground itself seemed to vibrate from the chaos. Everyone spun around, their faces filled with dread. A soldier scrambled towards them, shouting in panic, "Captain, it's bad. Something's charging from the north, and this time, it's not the undead." Hearing this, Captain Han rushed to the soldier's side. "What is it?" Yunqi's own eyes widened in absolute disbelief at the sight before them. Before them charged a massive herd of mutated boars. They moved as one terrifying swarm. These were no ordinary animals. They were powerful, frenzied, leaving a trail of destruction in their wake. A closer look revealed terrifying signs of infection. Their tusks were like razors, their bodies caked in blood. Yunqi recognized the threat instantly and yelled out, "They're mutated zombie boars!" Facing the imminent danger, the defense team mobilized instantly. Men carrying massive tower shields rushed to the front line. Captain Han took the lead, getting into a combat stance as his squad, armed with heavy-caliber rifles, prepared to face the mutated horde. They raised their weapons, taking aim at the charging beasts. Captain Han issued the command, "All marksmen, forward, shields, establish the front line. Riflemen, second rank, provide support fire. Scouts, watch the corners and sound the alarm at any change. Medics, stay in the rear. Once the fighting starts, don't hold back on healing." This formation, it was impressive. The support members in the back prepared their skills, responding in unison. From the sidelines, Yunqi observed their battle strategy. He was impressed. So, this is the city's Public Security Bureau enforcement team, less than 8 hours into the apocalypse. And they already have this level of coordination. Up ahead, the thundering stampede of boars closed in. The blonde vice captain urgently reported, "Captain, the infected boars are in firing range." Captain Han assessed the situation with a sharp gaze. Then, he gave the powerful command, "Open fire." At the same instant, the support team in the back cast a protective barrier over the soldiers, firing relentlessly into the charging horde. Everyone obeyed without hesitation. The battle formation was perfectly executed. The boars at the front of the pack were torn to shreds. Bullets ripped through their bodies, spraying blood everywhere as they were thrown onto their backs, squealing in agony. But for every one that fell, another took its place, charging over the bodies of the dead. The sheer number of them was overwhelming. The team unloaded clip after clip into the foul-smelling horde. The vice captain saw the tide turning. He immediately reported, "Captain, it's not looking good. At this rate, the monsters will break our defensive line." They thought this would be an easy kill. But the number of zombie boars was endless. Even the captain was overwhelmed by the ferocious assault. Damn it, is max firepower not enough to stop them? For the safety of his men, Captain Han was forced to order everyone to fall back behind cover. The squad scrambled back on the captain's command, while the mages in the rear pushed their limits, desperately reinforcing the barrier. The soldiers on the line knew this was hopeless. They yelled to each other, "We're low on ammo, fall back, now." But in the chaos, one man couldn't make it back in time. He was the last one running, pure terror on his face, as he pictured the savage horde behind him. He thought in agony, "My leg is injured. I can't run any faster." A massive zombie boar, a beast of immense power, spotted the straggler. It lunged forward, ready to claim its prey. Hearing the boar's squeal, the soldier knew it was over. Captain Han watched in horror, roaring his soldier's name, Lao Wang. But just then, out of nowhere, a powerful jet of water slammed into the charging boar. The beast was sent flying, unable to reach its target. The soldier lost his footing, tumbling hard across the ground. Ah! Stunned by this sudden turn of events, Captain Han and the others whipped their heads around, searching for their savior. There stood Van Koy, holding the fire hose he'd just used. A man who was not only intelligent, but handsome too. It was almost unfair. He was incredibly sharp when responding to dangerous situations. Even Captain Han couldn't help but nod in silent praise, he thought to himself. Using a high-pressure hose to stop a zombie boar. Now, that is a true talent. Meanwhile, his struggling comrade finally made it to safety. Captain Han turned, relief washing over him. "Lao Wang, you cheated death this time." He then offered a much friendlier smile to Van Koy. "Little brother, thank you for stepping in and saving my teammate's life." But Van Koy's reply was simple and detached. "Don't get the wrong idea. These monsters are extremely sensitive to the scent of blood. I just didn't want the smell of human blood to attract an even bigger horde." But inwardly, a sliver of worry crept into his thoughts. I had planned to keep my abilities hidden while observing this team's strength. I never expected to reveal my hand so soon. Glancing forward, he saw the zombie boar horde was still charging relentlessly, a tide of death surging toward them. They stampeded forward with endless, blood-curdling squeals. Van Koy watched with a growing sense of fatigue. Just how many of them were left? With the snipers pulled back, Captain Han waved his hand, ordering the rocket squad forward to provide covering fire. At the commander's order, a group of young men shouldering massive rocket launchers rushed forward in unison, letting out a powerful battle cry. Each one handled their weapon with expert skill, as if they had just stepped out of the regular army. Rockets soared through the air, slamming into the horde and erupting in thunderous explosions, taking out a huge chunk of their forces. In the aftermath of the volley, dozens of zombie boars were burned to a crisp. The blasts lit up the area, shaking the very ground. The scent of roasted pork filled the air. But this was no barbecue. Captain Han's squad continued to unleash hell, launching volley after volley at the horde. No matter where the boars ran, there was no escaping the fiery explosions. The horde was being decimated, their bodies torn apart in the inferno, as the air filled with the deafening sound of their dying squeals. A moment later, many of the boars were grievously wounded. Yet, despite having large parts of their bodies blown off, some were still standing. Observing from the back, Van Koy immediately saw the problem. This is useless. Unless they hit a weak spot, they can fire all day. The efficiency is too low. On the front lines, the soldiers frantically launched rocket after rocket, but the undead beasts, though mangled and torn, just kept on charging. One of the soldiers yelled out, "Fire again! Let's turn these damn things into ground pork." But the soldier at the front replied, his voice laced with despair, "I wish I could, but this is the last rocket." Just as he was about to fire the final round, Van Koy's sword suddenly appeared, blocking the tip of the launcher. The time had come for him to finally make his move. Van Koy stepped forward with an air of confidence, his sword resting on his shoulder. He swiftly stopped the soldier and then reached out, taking the weapon for himself. Van Koy's movements were a blur. He gripped the launcher and fired before the soldier could even react. Wait a second. The main character handled that rocket launcher as casually as a slingshot. He let the rocket fly right past his own head. The soldier screamed in terror at the unexpected maneuver. The rocket flew in a wide arc and slammed into a nearby building. Down on the ground, the zombie boars were completely unscathed. Startled by the sound, the horde panicked and charged even faster. The soldier, clutching the now empty launcher, roared in frustration. "You newbie! What the hell was that? You missed completely." But this was all part of Van Koy's calculation. He had intentionally targeted the building, causing tons of bricks and rubble to rain down, blocking the path of the stampeding horde and forcing them to a screeching halt. But it was too late to stop. Massive slabs of concrete from the collapsing building came crashing down upon them. From a nearby building came crashing down on the horde of boars. A moment later, the chaos finally settled. The boars at the front were utterly pulverized, crushed by the falling concrete slabs that wiped out half the horde, causing the rest to freeze in their tracks. Seeing the devastating result of his shot, the soldier who had let a curse slip moments ago finally breathed a sigh of relief. What? It actually stopped them? From his position, Van Koy smirked, looking at the zombie boars with satisfaction. Just as I predicted, even Captain Han found himself impressed by Van Koy's sharp instincts and tactical mind. This kid has real talent. But it wasn't over. These monstrous boars were horrifyingly resilient. They were so strong they began to push themselves up from under the massive concrete chunks. The captain saw the monster's new movements, his jaw dropping in disbelief as he screamed a warning to the others. "All units, the monsters are regenerating. There are still too many of them. Do not let your guard down."